I am at the Chez Artistes Theater in Denver. I just saw this film, Drive My Car. And there you go, Drive My Car. Japanese film, nominated for Oscar, Best Picture of the Year. See if I can get a better zoom on that guy's face. It's actually pretty blurry, but he's a good actor. And she was very good. And she drives the car for him. But I don't want to give much more away about this film. It's snowy night here in Denver, Colorado, chilly. I'm gonna do a little on-the-spot review. It's a 3-hour movie, 3 hours. I would have liked an intermission because holding your bladder for 3 hours is really not healthy, but I managed. And hey, I'm not a young person. That was kind of tough. I didn't drink a whole lot of fluids. I ate a lot of popcorn, and that helped because the salt will help delay your need to go. But anyway, let me get into the movie. It was a slow-paced movie in terms of, I mean, there's no real action in this movie. This really could have been a play, basically, as a film. And it was very engaging, though, however. I didn't find it boring in the least, even though it's, as I say, the film is just very, very conversational, a lot of dialogue, a lot of still shots throughout the film, except when we're in the car driving. And those scenes were moving along. There's a little bit of movement, so that helped a lot to keep you awake. I'm not saying I was going to fall asleep in the film. The story's very, very good. And without giving away spoiler plot points and that sort of thing, it's basically, it's a character study, largely. Is philosophical to some degree. There's a philosophical element woven throughout the film. It has a lot to do with theater, as opposed to films that are movies that make you feel like you're in a movie. This is a film about plays, and so it has a lot of a theater going on. And I will get the lights going on here for you so you can see my mug here. Basically, it's a fellow who's a director. He's an actor-director, and early in the film, there's a situation that occurs with him and his wife. I don't want to give that away because that would spoil the film for you a little bit, even though it does happen early in the film. But nevertheless, I'm not going to give that away, that little plot point. And then the film, we see him moving around a little bit, and they're staging a play called Uncle Vanya by Chekhov. And it's a very famous play. I've never seen it performed in its entirety, although you can get the film version of it, I'm sure, and look around if it might be playing in your neighborhood. I doubt that. However, in the film, we see a set of different characters that allow us to look into people's emotional makeup. We learn about their past history, their relationships. This film is a lot dealing with relationships, not from the context that you would see in a normal Hollywood type film at all. This is a much more introspective film. We see large portions of the play, Uncle Vanya, being performed and spoken out in various forms. This is in Japanese, they're speaking in Japanese mostly, and there is also some sign language. So it's very, very interesting to hear the parts of the play that obviously the director, the co-writer, thought were significant to elements within the film itself. There are parallels, because we're talking about not just the meaning of life in this film, but he's talking about the significance of life, the heartache in life we feel when we experience loss. And everyone experiences that one way, shape, form, or another at different times in their life over a lifetime. And it can weigh on a person. And there are also elements we sometimes feel of guilt when certain people have left our lives. For whatever reason, maybe we didn't get to say the final things we would have liked to said to that person. These kinds of things, you know, remorse and misgivings we might have, and the feeling of loss once they're gone. You know, you can no longer speak with that person again. We see basically, there's one part of the film that I really enjoyed, and there's one character in the film who's just a super ebullient, joyful man. You can just tell that's his basic nature, is to be very charitable and kind and giving. And that person is was like a star in the movie, and not a movie star, but like a shining star for me. I really latched onto that character. He's not in the film a lot, but his appearance in the film really lifted the film up about midway through. And then we see this sloping arc where the film kind of goes in a different direction now. It's fairly somber. I wouldn't use the word depressing, but it gets dark in its tone and its mood, and there are some other events that occur in the film that are a little bit unexpected. So the film had me guessing all the way along, not really guessing, trying to predict what's going to happen. I was just going for the ride. As they say, drive my car. I let the director drive the car of the film, the storyline of the film. And as they did that, they basically unveiled for me a perspective on life that I hadn't thought about before. And that is, why do we so often allow ourselves to lose control in our life, to be unconscious, to go about our life, basically our ego is what it is. But even beyond ego, it's a loss of a sense of our identity of who we really are. And so we identify with this false self that we've constructed, and there's a price to pay sometimes because there are consequences for our actions. We all know that. And so I thought it was a splendid film. I don't know that I would have picked it as the best film of the year, but if it did win best film of the year, it would not surprise me. It's up there in quality also with Parasite, although it's an entirely different film, almost the opposite of what Parasite was, the Korean film that won the Academy Award for Best Film a few years ago. One of the few times Best Film of the Year did actually win Best Film Award. Drive My Car, I thought was a stunning achievement in cinema, because it basically shows us what we can do in this medium without lots of special effects, without lots of fast-paced dialogue where people are saying cliches to each other, basically a lot of sarcasm that you see in films today, or people being aggressive or violent in different ways where you need to drum up, the drama and the emotion and get people worked up. These kinds of things that you see mostly in American Hollywood films. This film, I haven't seen a tremendous number of Japanese films, but this one really impressed me, similar to some European films of years past, or even today still, where they'll take more time, just as Europeans do, and I assume Asians may do the same in their culture. They take time for certain activities in the day, such as eating a meal together, to enjoy conversation, to eat the meal slowly, to savor the food. And that's what I did in Drive My Car. It was not one of these quickie movies where you get in and you want to be shaken up and everything. And no, it was a film to really just allow it to wash over your senses and to absorb each character and what they had to offer in the film. And many of them were just like everyday real life people. The acting was superb. They did not try to basically create characters that were over the top, exaggerated, and that sort of thing. Again, that's very common in Hollywood films, where people oftentimes in the films don't act like genuine real people do. In this film, they did. The people seemed very authentic. They behaved and acted, and it was scripted in a way that there was a lot of authenticity, a tremendous, I would say, element of authenticity to this film that reflected back real life people. And yet, not boring, because it was sort of like we were a fly on the wall getting to observe these real life people who had nuanced events in their life. They had significant events. They had all kinds of different things going on different levels. And it was just very mysterious to me to watch this unfold throughout the film and to pay attention to what was going to happen next. And there's a surprise ending that I'm not going to say I 100% got it, but I'm going to look into it and see what other people might say as an explanation. So that was a little bit of a puzzler for me right there at the very end, the last minute or so of the film. But up until then, it's very straightforward. Not a lot really happens as far as, what you might expect in a film where you want some build up, some problem created, and then a climax, and then a denouement, and a resolution. This film doesn't follow that familiar pattern. This is a very creative film. It takes a new step in a different direction in filmmaking, and for me, that's why I found it so fresh and rewarding. It basically overall showed me this was a slice of real life, different country, different culture, different language, didn't matter. It could have been happening in my backyard or yours or anybody else's. This is a film I think most people will be able to relate to very easily, in spite of the fact if you're not speaking Japanese. This film is subtitled in English, very, very high quality subtitles. I read everything clearly and understood everything very, very well. So I will give very, very strong recommendation that if you can handle a 3-hour movie without having to go to the bathroom, you might want to wait for DVD. Do not miss this film, Drive My Car. Definitely one of the best films I saw this year.